Welcome to Pound for Pound, the MMA podcast. And now, coming to the mic, your host, Jalen Walker.
Test. Hello. Welcome to Pound for Pound, the MMA podcast. I'm your host, Jalen Walker. Today we're joined by one of the top lightweight prospects out of Canada. Our guest today is an undefeated Canadian lightweight who has spent most of his career with the King in the Cage promotions and earlier this year with the Ohio Combat League. But you might have seen him on week 4 of Dana White's Contender series when he had an impressive unanimous decision victory over the skilled Mike Breen. I'd like to introduce to the podcast Anthony the Genius Romero. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for coming on the show. Super excited to talk to you. I firmly believe you're one of Canada's top prospects at lightweight. You have a solid chin. You have some great footwork. You're dominant in that stand-up. But yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's pretty cool for this talk, and everything looks so professional, so it was awesome.
I appreciate that, man. We try hard. I appreciate it. So you're 8-0 as a professional fighter, and you're on an 8-fight win streak as an amateur fighter, correct? So you're technically on a 16-fight run. Am I wrong?
No, it's you're right.
That's awesome, man. A lot of those wins came out of King in the Cage, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
What was your experience like with them?
King of the Cage was cool. It was a nice. It was kind of like a home promotion for me, because it's like 20 minutes from my house, so I just had to cross the border, and I'm pretty much there.
Nice.
It was everything was very professional. They treated me like a champion there. The only issue with not being able to be on the Contender series last year. Yeah. But other than that, there's no bad blood between us. They treated me and my family great, and yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to get to that a little bit later about how they stopped you from getting to that, but we'll get to that soon. So you fight at a Parabellum MMA and Niagara Top Team, so both gyms, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and your coaches are Lyndon Whitlock, Rory McDonald, and Chris Prickett?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. What is it like fighting? Because I believe Rory McDonald was in the UFC, correct? Am I wrong on that?
No, that's a different Rory McDonald. He's in Bellator.
Okay.
The names sound the same. I think the last names are spelled different, but
okay.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So what was it like? So are you mainly at Parabellum right now?
Mainly at Niagara Top Team,
okay,
because it's closer to my house.
Okay.
But yeah, when I'm in camp, I'm traveling about that hour to Parabellum.
Okay. So it's like an hour distance away from each other?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's pretty nice. That's not too bad. So taking you back in time a little bit, you've been fighting since a young age. You fought with the Canadian national kickboxing team, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
What age did you enter the national team?
I believe the first time traveling with Team Canada was, I believe I was 16.
Nice.
Traveling. That was my first tournament actually with the national team, was the Pan American Championships.
Okay.
So the people who won the Canadian National Championships got a spot on the team, and from there we went to Brazil for the Pan Ams, and it was just a different experience. Not a lot of people get to have that type of experience, and it was awesome. It was so cool being in Brazil, being in a different country, and it was also awesome to represent the country of Canada, and yeah, just there's no experience like it.
That's awesome. You won one of the Pan Ams, correct?
For jiu-jitsu, yes.
Yes, for jiu-jitsu, yeah. I saw that. That's awesome. How old were you when that happened?
I believe I was
Sorry, you broke out. How old were you?
Yeah, about 16, 17.
16, 17? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So around the same time. But yeah, so during your time with the national kickboxing team, you were traveling a lot all over the world, correct?
Yeah. I went to Brazil for the Pan American Championship.
Yep, like you said.
And then I went to Italy for the World Championships.
Yeah. So like did that help you in your transition to MMA? Because fights pre-COVID were all over the globe. I mean, you got Abu Dhabi for Fight Island. Did that help you in that instance, like just to be able to keep your mind straight, even if you have to travel across the world?
Oh yeah, for sure. I believe it gives me a huge advantage to have traveled far distances and still compete, have to make weight and all that. And yeah, it was just a great experience. Like I said, a lot of people have that hard time taking the flight to go take fights and all that. But for me, it was awesome. At the time, I would say I was young to compete on the world stage, and having to go through that, it helped me a lot to feel more comfortable right now.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome, man. That must have been such an amazing experience being that young and traveling the world and representing your country of Canada. That's awesome. So now I understand that a certain fight you watched in 2008 had a particular impact on you. That fight took place at UFC 90, and that was between Patrick Cote, is that how you pronounce his last name, and Anderson Silva.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That was that fight caught my attention big time, and it was in the transition between Taekwondo and then actually training mixed martial arts. So when I saw that, really opened my eyes to see what else is out there. It's not just Taekwondo and kicking and breaking boards. There's a sport out there that you can put everything together,
yeah,
and
exactly.
that really caught my attention. That I don't have to follow. I do have to follow rules, but I don't have to follow a specific type of rules thrown. So that was really really cool when I saw that fight.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, for me it was Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz, the first fight, and that just it was like, man, what what is this? Like, I need more of this. Like, it was just so entertaining, and then just yeah, just those early 2000 fights just were some of those fights were just breathtaking. You don't see some of that today, just that raw, brutal, like I'm gonna take you out energy. You know what I mean? But sometimes, but more nowadays, it's more professional. People are trying to make a living. You know what I mean? So that was a good era. But yeah, so after that fight, I believe you went to your first MMA gym. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was the same year actually in 2008 where I saw that fight, and then a gym opened up in my town of Welland, and it just worked out perfectly. Where I just started to do everything. I did jiu-jitsu, I did kickboxing, and then that was kind of like my main martial arts at the time. And then eventually, after my second amateur fight, I started wrestling, which I lost my second amateur fight, and that opened my eyes to more that's out there, which is wrestling. That's later on where I met my wrestling coach, Chris Prickett, and yeah, just really transitioned my game from there big time.
Yeah. It's really really interesting because I was looking at your record, and that loss you're talking about is your only loss, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So after you lost your second time, something clicked in your head, and you were just like, nope, I don't need that anymore. So is that more accounted to your takedown ability and your wrestling mixed with your stand up that you're now your approaches? Because on Contender series, you were just letting loose, like with your leg kicks, the takedowns. Like, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it really opened my eyes. Like I thought that it was only stand up and then some type of grappling that you needed, but wrestling, I find it helps you dictate whether you want it to go on the ground or you want it to stay on the feet. Learning how to defend takedowns, learning how to get takedowns, that timing, and then straight wrestling is tough. And then when you're able to transition it into MMA, it makes things so much easier. There's less struggle, and yeah, I have so much respect for wrestling and for what uh, freestyle wrestlers do, freestyle, all the type of wrestling, Greco-Roman. It's an intense sport, but yeah, it helped me a lot to improve my MMA game.
Nice. Side question: do you think that fighters coming up in that wrestling environment, like DC, and Henry Cejudo, do you think that that gives them advantage? Do you think it's easier to transition from, hey, I'm a striker, but let me learn some ground game, or is it easier? Do you think, hey, I'm a wrestler, someone teach me how to do some stand up? You know what I mean? What is that dynamic like?
Yeah, for sure. I've seen a lot of people transition from different martial arts, and where I find, because I teach as well, and where I find people have the best transition are wrestlers. My girlfriend's a wrestler, and she's been doing striking, and she catches on really, really well. There's other people that I've trained with at the Brock wrestling team who do some striking, and they can catch on so much easier compared to other martial arts. But I'm not saying that you only have to do wrestling and then transition, but I find that it's the best one to transition to an overall MMA game.
Understandable. That's a good insight when you break it down like that. And yeah, we'll get into your training a little bit later because I wanted to talk to you about that. Um, but yeah, since we were talking legends with Anderson Silva and all that, I had to bring up the GOAT, GSP. I mean, you both are from Canada, live in Canada. What do you think about the talks of his possible return to fight Khabib, the rumors and stuff like that?
Of course, I'm gonna say that he's gonna win,
Yeah,
but it is risky business. You're one of the
100%.
best in the world, best of all time. You're retired. Like it's a tough thing to tell him that he should fight and he shouldn't fight, because who am I to say anything about his career? But
Yeah.
I'm happy with the way that he went out. He went out on top, especially he won another title in a different weight class. And of course, there would be no doubt in my mind, or to anyone's mind, or there shouldn't be anyways, if he were to win the lightweight title as well, to have 3 world titles in the UFC,
That
he
would be
would be
insane.
hands down best in the world.
There would be no question. I mean, he's already in talks of being the GOAT now for what he's done in the sport. Um, but I wanted to ask you also, as a fellow Canadian, how has his legacy as a fighter affected you growing up in the sport? Were you looking up to him? Was that someone that was not an idol to you, but someone that you could say, "Hey, I see what he's doing. I want to follow that path," in some sense.
Oh yeah, of course. And I believe I'm not the only one. There's so many people trying to model their game, like George St. Pierre. But I also believe that new fighters coming up should find the base of one of the best fighters, but throw in some sugar and spice in their own style as well. You want to stand out. You don't want to be an exact replica of someone else, if that makes sense.
No, 100%
Um,
agree with that.
so
100%.
so yeah, so I try to not copy, but get the same idea as him, being able to balance the MMA game and wrestling, have a good jiu-jitsu game, have a good striking game. And if you watch George St. Pierre fight, he doesn't do anything too fancy. It's just jab, jab cross, jab takedown, like very simple stuff that a lot of fighters try to do, spinning heel kicks, and then they get taken down, and then they lose the fight, or they try to be too fancy where it catches the attention of the audience, but then they lose their fight, which is not good for their career. So I that's why I find George St. Pierre as one of my idols. And then outside the cage, the way he carries himself, he's very humble. He doesn't talk too much. He's mentally strong. He's also honest with a lot of the stuff that he talks about in podcasts and all that. Which that's completely why I admire him.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's a great role model for fighters and what to a standard to look at. Like, hey, look what he did in the ring, outside the ring. He's not causing any trouble, um, and he gets the job done. One of my favorite out of the ring videos I've ever seen of GSP. I don't know if you ever seen this, but I believe it was John Jones was going to the club, and his friend was just taking a video, and they're in line, and his friend that's doing the video like taps the guy in front of him on the shoulder, and he's like, John, and it turns around, and it's just GSP, like, and I think like a brown leather jacket, and then they just like dab it up, and they're just hanging out talking, and like you can just tell like he loves fighters, he loves talking with them, and he's just all around solid guy, I believe. That's awesome. But
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, but moving on. During quarantine, you were taking clients over Zoom for training sessions. Is that correct?
Yes, yep.
What was that like? Was it difficult? Were you booked? What was that experience like?
Oh yeah, people at that time, they were kind of, I would say, like in a panic. They wanted to do some type of exercise, and and that was the only option that I had to teach people. And yeah, I would love to be in person, one-on-one, and all that, but I have to take precaution, especially with potential fights coming up. I wanted to make sure that I was safe as well as my family and people that I'm around. So I had to put everything online, and at first it was awkward. It was different because I couldn't actually be there. So I had to do my best to coach them with certain type of movements, even striking, and like mostly the striking class was just shadow boxing and learning technique and how to rotate on the punches and all that. And a lot of coaches wouldn't like that. They would want to be there in person, one-on-one, which I would like that too. But you need to improvise, and that was what I did. And it was cool. I had 20, 30 people in a class on Zoom, and it was fun. Everyone enjoyed it. Everyone got a good workout. It was only 30-minute classes, and everyone loved it. So I just kept doing it, and I continue to do them. People like them, the one-on-one sessions or the classes, and I have a lot of fun. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, that must have been just the quarantine aspect, just having those people to train and talk to and interact with, that probably helps you get through that process and just stay fit yourself. I mean, you're doing 10 clients a day or whatever. I'm not sure what you were doing. I mean, that's keeping you physically active also, in addition with your training. So I think that's awesome. I think that was a great way to keep people motivated during quarantine, and that was cool. That was really cool. Um, but so with you living out of Canada, were you worried at all with the recent travel bans? Saying like, because I don't know if you knew you were on a Contender series or we're going to be on a Contender series yet, but were you worried like, hey, I live in Canada, I won't be able to make it to these fights?
Yeah, I was mostly worried because there was talks of not having any fights at all. This was before the UFC had plans to go to Fight Island and fighting at the Apex. I think they fought in Florida, one UFC card. So before, I really had no idea what was going to happen. I thought fights were going to be canceled until this whole thing wiped out. So yeah, I was worried, but the UFC just pushed through and improvised and found a way. So as soon as I found out that the UFC was having fights still, I was ready to go. Even though we were in quarantine and everything, I was still doing my runs. I was still training, me and my brother and I. And yeah, like I was still staying in shape, but that part of not knowing what was next, that kind of bothered me. But other than that, just kept going and stayed in shape.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, yeah, it was a little worrisome for a while, and just when they got the situation with the athletic travel permissions, that kind of was like a little bit of relief. I don't know if it was for you, but that kind of gave me hope that hey, we will get some of these international fighters, because not all fighters are just from living in the United States. I mean, you got Russia, you got Canada with you, and just all around the globe. So I do want to talk to you. You did win a title during the pandemic, correct?
It was actually right before
So
everything
yeah,
started.
March 7th of this year, and that was with the Ohio Combat League, and that was a KO victory in 58 seconds against Jacob Miller. How did that feel?
That was a really cool experience. That whole fight week was tough because there was talks of the whole card getting canceled. There was talks of having no crowd. There's so many things going through my mind because I still had to make weight. It's not like I could just stop and just see what was happening next and then start to make weight. I had to continue to get down to the lightweight limit, and yeah, I just kept waiting and waiting. And it wasn't until maybe 2 days before they said that everything was still a go. They moved the location from the Ohio Convention Center to a venue called Express Live,
Hmm.
and everything went smooth. There was a crowd there still, but it was a weird thing because no one really knew what was going on. There was people saying you need to be careful, don't shake hands, don't hug people, don't get close to people, and it's such a weird thing because it's such a habit. If someone puts their hand out like this, you automatically just go like that and you shake their hand.
Yeah.
Or if someone's talking to you, you don't go like, "Hey, back up." I need space, like, for what's going on. So it was just a weird thing, but thankfully everything went well. I got the KO, which is awesome. It was pretty cool. It's what every fighter hopes for, to get a quick knockout. And yeah, everything's perfect. And then it wasn't until I got home, it was like a couple days later, they were saying that people should be quarantining. All the rules just went down. The UFC got canceled in
Yep.
Ohio, and
Yeah,
it was
that
just.
was. I wanted to go to that because I live in Ohio, and I was really looking forward to Cote and Francis. That was going to be an insane card.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And everything just stopped. It was just, no one knew what was going on from there, and and yeah, it was just a weird experience overall.
Yeah, yeah, the whole world stopped, and it just basically went in a standstill. And I was gonna ask you, were people nervous, during the event, like the fighters? Were some people hesitant to fight with all the rumors going around of what was going on, and if possible, sports being stopped all in general?
Um, I don't know. I don't think there, at the time, there wasn't enough information
Yeah,
for people to know about what was going on. There wasn't enough scare to the public for people to be like, okay, well, we're not going to go anywhere. And then eventually it slowly went on where things shut down, and then people started taking things seriously. So at the time, I guess we were a little bit worried, like, because my family travels to my fights and all that, and they were kind of worried a little bit, but they were kind of like half and half because they didn't really know what was going on. So yeah, the whole experience was kind of weird, but like I said, thankfully everyone got home safe, and yeah.
yeah. I feel like the turning point for that situation was, when I was watching the Mavs game, and that game got, like, you saw Mark Cuban whispering to somebody, tell him what's happening, and then all those games got canceled, and then the UFC came out and canceled, and then March Madness was canceled. Like, once sports really shut down, I think people really was like, oh, okay, we there's this is bad. We should really take notice and try to figure this out. So I think the level in the pedestal that sports are on is huge, and I think that was a good call on their part to stop it. And I'm glad that you got at least that fight off before everything got shut down and got the title. That's awesome. Do you miss the crowd atmosphere? Because I know, at the Apex, is it echoing? Like, is it, what are the acoustics like in there? Because whenever you hear someone get hit or someone hit the canvas, it just echoes. Does it sound like that there?
It's so quiet because it's such a big area,
Yeah.
and no one's talking. There's nothing. All you can hear is the cameras clicking or
Really?
flashing. And that's pretty much it.
You
That's
couldn't
that's
hear the
all there is.
commentators at all?
No, I believe for the Contender series, the commentators are in a different room and they're watching on a screen.
Really? I did not,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
how
So
they
the
show it, it looks
commentators,
like they're okay. Wow, I did not know that.
yeah, yeah, they're in a different room. Same thing with Laura Sanko. She's in a different room.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, the only people that were in there were, I believe, some media members for the UFC,
And
and
the
then of course
judges.
the matchmakers and Dana White.
Yeah. Are the judges in there also, or are they in a separate room?
I don't remember exactly, but I
Yeah,
think they were there. They were there in each spot,
yeah.
and of course the referee.
That changes my view on it a lot, to be honest with you. I thought they were just pushed off to the side, the commentators, but yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know. Like, I didn't really know why they did that, because even for the actual UFC cards,
Yeah.
the commentators are there.
Yeah. You got DC,
So
you got Joe, they're all sitting on the sides, Paul and them, like, they just separated. So that's kind of
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
That's kind of interesting. I wonder if they probably just got a room with them with multiple camera views, and they can probably see everything. That makes a lot more sense, actually. It really does make a lot more sense. But yeah, so does the crowd usually give you some momentum or energy, or do you see more focus without all that going on?
yeah. I believe that sports revolves around the, what's it called, the athletes and the crowd.
Yeah.
The crowd gives so much energy, not even just fighting, but football game, hockey game. Like, the crowd is amazing, and I love the crowd. I've had many fights with crowds, and it can be both ways. It can be them booing you or cheering you on. or cheering both fighters on. So it's I believe it changes the dynamic for a lot of fighters who feed off the crowd. I'm okay either way, but I love the fans. It's so cool having them cheer you on.
Yeah.
But I have the mentality that I'm there to do a job regardless of what's happening around me. I have my coaches and myself who are there to do work. So I don't really focus too much on the crowd because I believe a lot of fighters we've seen recently some fighters who usually are a little bit more aggressive. For example, like Justin Gaethje feeds off the crowd. He gets that energy. And he has a little bit of a different style when he fought Tony Ferguson compared to his past fights, where the crowd is cheering a lot. So he keeps pushing forward for the finish. And then he was a little bit more patient in that fight.
Yeah,
so.
He was very patient. That was probably the fight of the year for me. That fight was just wow. It's something you were kind of expecting it, but it wasn't definite that he was going to be that dominant and have that beautiful performance. But yeah, so I did want to ask you, your nickname's the Genius. Where did that come from?
So yeah, that nickname comes from my fight style. When I was younger, training at my old gym, I was training with the adults. So I was 14, I believe at the time, 14 or 15, and the adult class was I think 17 and above or something like that. So I was training with the adults, and I was doing these things that no one had taught me before. It was pretty much reaction, and it was working. It was pretty cool how it worked out. And my coach at the time yelled out, "Oh, he's the genius, making up new things, inventing new moves," and it kind of stuck with me, and it still continues because when I train smart. I don't train hard or like that old school mentality that I need to have 6 hours a day or I need 8 hours a day, and I'm draining my energy throughout the week, and I'm getting injured and all that stuff. Where of course you can still get injured, but I try to take that smart approach where if I do a hard rounds the day before, maybe the next day I'm going to be a little bit more technical, do a little bit lighter work, and then the following day I'll be rest up, and then I'll go hard again. So I really take a feel off my body to see what type of training I'm going to do day by day.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good nickname, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? The Genius. All right, so let's dive into your win over Mike Breen on week 4 of the Contender series, if you don't mind. Going to that fight, were you confident that you were going to get the victory? And what was going through your mind walking into the octagon at the Apex Arena for the first time? I know you said it kind of threw you off. All you can hear is the flickers. But other than that, what was that experience like?
Oh yeah, of course. I was confident. I believe in this sport you have to be confident, or else why are you doing it, right?
Yeah.
Why are you going to go into something that you already mentally lost, right? You put in your head that I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
The whole experience was great. Of course, I was nervous. I'll admit I do get nervous, but I think it's normal.
Yeah.
Athletes get nervous for their performance, and that's why they do the best that they can during the performance because of those nerves.
A lot of the biggest veterans in the sport say they get nervous still to this day.
Yeah. It's something that never goes away. You'll always get nervous, and I find it weird. It's something that I need to discuss with people. People say they don't get nervous, but I think it's something that they don't understand or they don't consider it being nervous. But I think everyone has a small type of nerve in them, telling them anything that can happen, or just any worry that they have. But yeah, going on to walking into the arena, it was so cool. It was just a weird experience because, like I said, it was quiet. Obviously, there was no one talking. There's not even any walk-up music, which is
that's
weird.
that's the weird part about it. I don't understand that.
I believe it adds more pressure walking out in silence.
Just the doors opening. Silent walk to the octagon.
But yeah, I was nervous for the fight. I wasn't nervous for what could happen. Like maybe if I were to lose, then I wouldn't get a contract. Like that wasn't really running through my head. I was excited about that part. I was excited to perform in front of, I would say, millions of people watching on TV. I was excited for the whole opportunity to perform in front of Dana White and the matchmakers. I was excited I'm pretty much living my dream. This is what I want to do. This is what I've dedicated my life to do. And that whole part was exciting to me. The nerves were from the fight, having to fight. How am I going to perform? What can happen in the sport? Anything can happen. You get knocked out, tapped out, anything. There's so many results that can happen in the sport. So the unknown is what makes me nervous.
I can understand that. But I thought you looked incredible in the fight. Like, you completely decimated Breeden's leg. I thought the fight was going to be stopped because he's just limping so much. But yeah, you have impressive cardio, impressive striking, impressive footwork, like I said. You go for takedowns, but you prove that you can take some shots and you have a chin and you got the heart to keep going. And I think that's what some of these fighters that are trying to make it these days lack. And I think that's something to be proud of, that you can just take a punch and it just like, all right, let's get it. You know what I mean? That's like Max Holloway, you know what I mean? Just point to the ground, let's keep going. I'm ready for the battle. And I think that's super entertaining. Even Paul Felder was cringing at your leg. I don't know if you've watched it back or not, but he was making I thought it should have been stopped. And I personally do think that you should have got a contract. But 2 judges gave you all 3 rounds, and then the 3rd judge gave you a 29-28. But how do you feel? Do you think the fight should have been stopped? Do you think it was justified to keep it going to give Mike Breen a chance? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the fight should have went exactly how it did. He wasn't at a point where he couldn't continue to fight. He was still defending himself intelligently, and yeah, he was still going, and he was tough, and
Yeah.
and that was cool because a lot of people would have went down, a lot of people would have quit, and he didn't, and that was really cool. I gave him a lot of credit. I know Dana White really appreciated that, but I also believe that I showed a lot, that I can still persevere. I can still keep the pressure. I can go through adversity because, yeah, he was doing well in the 3rd round, around the beginning of the 3rd.
Sorry, we lost you for a second.
And I can. So.
There you are. We lost you for a
Can
second.
you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So I was just saying that I believe that I still showed a lot, even though he showed his toughness. But I showed that I have an overall game, that I can go for takedowns, I can throw those leg kicks, I can keep my cardio, I can defend myself. I believe I showed everything, but except the finish, which is another topic, because some people say that I should have got the finish, and then people don't realize the things that go on in there.
Yeah.
People don't realize the things that I see, the possibilities that can happen. So it's just
Can't let your guard down. Can't let your guard down.
Yeah. I can't throw everything I got.
Yeah.
He throws one punch, and then my back's on the canvas, and the fight's over.
Yeah.
Right. So people want craziness in there, and craziness is not me. I take a smart approach, and I like to pick people apart. So
yeah, that was a great fight. Mike Breeden's a tough guy out of Glory MMA. That was a hell of a fight. But I do have to ask you this. So when you were sitting there with all the fighters, and Dana said, this kid has talent, he's young, but he'll be in the UFC someday, but not today. You know, how did you feel? Like, because I thought it was a sure bet. I was like, give it to the kid, he's got it. And I just stopped for a second. I'm like, this isn't right. And I got on Twitter, and everyone else was saying, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. What was that feeling like?
Well, I'll be honest. Of course, everyone probably knows the answer, but it sucked. It's I'm so close to achieving my goal. Like I said, I've been doing this my whole life, and for him to say no, for something that it's tough to say, because he took the negative instead of taking the positives. Because yeah, of course, there's the finish there, but what else did I do? I picked him apart. I outstruck a striker, and I didn't have to rely too much on my wrestling, where in my past fights I did a lot of wrestling, which could have been boring, right?
Yeah,
So it's a tough thing, but who am I to tell my future boss what to do and say? So I just gotta stick with the decision, and I'll be back for sure. There's no doubt in my mind, like you said. It's inevitable that I'll be there one day.
for sure. And it's interesting you say that because some people say wrestling's boring, and you look at Usman versus Masvidal for instance, and people like they're always gonna say, oh, he wrestled too much or he did that. But the thing is, if you're a wrestler or if you're good at wrestling and you don't wrestle and something happens, then they're gonna be like, why didn't you wrestle? So there's always a lose-lose in that situation unless you're like completely mixing it up and get a knockout. So I thought that was interesting that you said how some people think wrestling is boring, and I just don't understand it. I don't understand how people can't see that and understand that Brazilian jiu-jitsu and just those great skills just being put to use. Like, I think it's very entertaining. But after the fight, Dana did say this about the fight. He said he's 23 years old. He's 8-0. He's got nothing but time. That kid's going to be better, and he's going to be great someday. He's not anywhere near his prime yet, and he's still a young kid. How do you feel about that? I mean, those are some high praises from the president of the UFC. That's not something to take lightly.
Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, it's a weird thing because there's been people younger than me who have gotten contracts to the UFC. There's actually another guy who got a contract the same night, who was the same age as me.
Yeah, that
And
was
I
the
think he
fight
had
after you, wasn't
one
it?
more fight. Yeah, he had one
Yeah,
more
yeah.
fight. And then what was the other thing? He had one more fight than me. And there was another thing.
Didn't he
Oh,
also
he
go to
went decision
decision
as
with you?
well.
He also went to decision.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's hard to see or to take what he said, because the exact same thing happened the following fight. So
yeah.
I don't know. Like there could be something else. Maybe he just didn't enjoy the fight, which to him that's his decision. If you thought it was boring or it wasn't enough to get to the UFC, that's I'm not gonna get upset over that. Like that's what he wants, and I'll do better next time.
For sure.
But yeah, like I said, it's pretty cool that he notices me. I'm on the radar, of course. There's been a couple of short notice opportunities here and there. I'm trying to get in everywhere. Even weight classes aren't even mine. I'm trying to get down in weight. So yeah, I'm still ready.
For sure. And you're not the only fighter that has put out an impressive contract worthy performance and has been passed up. You got Austin Vanderford, Sydney Outlaw, you got what was the girl's name? Don Lee, who had an amazing job. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's off that day or what it is, but this isn't the first time it's happened. And like I said, I do believe that you should have got a contract, and that was a bummer. Um, but even though you didn't get the contract, do you think that this put you on a pedestal as a even higher prospect coming out of Canada, even for other organizations?
Yeah. I believe it gave me some good exposure to another audience. I got a lot of messages on Instagram from people I have no idea who they are, but it is really cool to see that I got their attention, right?
Yeah.
New fans, and that's awesome. That means a lot to me. Also, good exposure for future sponsors or potential sponsors because they want people who have attention, right? So getting that is great as well, and just pretty much getting my name out there to the public, letting people know who I am and that I'm someone to look out for and that will be in the UFC one day.
Yeah, you definitely got my attention. That's for sure. um, but yeah, as we were uh talking to some other people, do you think that if they do bring Contender Series back in November, do you think you'll be invited back? Would you go back?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. It wasn't until the week after they started announcing that, so I was like, "Oh, am I not invited to the party?"
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I'm still hoping that there'll be a short notice opportunity to go
Yeah,
right
just
to the
to
UFC.
yeah,
Um,
I feel that.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what else they want me to show them
Yeah,
other than getting a finish in the Contender Series, which is honestly it's better than fighting in a local promotion
for
due
sure.
to pay and everything. But other than that, it's I believe the UFC is the next step, and that I've showed more than enough to that I can hang with the best.
For sure. I would love to see you in the lightweight division in the UFC. I think you would bring some really good aspects to the division, and I think there could be some really good fights there for you. I personally believe. Um, so as we were talking about before, I want to bring it up now. You were previously blocked by King of the Cage from competing on the Contender Series. Has that changed your view on the business end of the MMA? And what advice can you give some of these up and coming fighters that are thinking of signing with some of these promotions so they can prevent that situation in the future?
Yeah, I would say have someone that will represent you well. You need someone that you can honestly trust. At the time, I had like my coach was training me and managing me at the same time, and he was like honestly, there's no bad blood between us. He was doing a great job, but it's that experience that was lacking in the professional aspect. It was mainly there was connections in the amateur circuit and all that, but he helped me very well. But there was a point where I needed professional help, and Dodge Sports has been nothing but great to me, and helping me with sponsorships and guiding me the right direction, getting proper fights, working with the proper promotions, getting my name out there, and he eventually got me the Contender Series opportunity, and that was awesome because I remember the first time we spoke, I asked him, I was like, "Can you get me to the UFC?" And he honestly said, "I can get you there, but it's up to you. You need to win the fights. You need to do the hard work." And I kept my end of the bargain, and so did he. And we're almost there. We almost got it, and we will. But yeah, it was. I would definitely recommend having someone that will represent you with everything, not just someone who's a manager and trying to take money from you. You need someone who will do everything they can to do the best for you. And yeah, I think that's super important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he seems like he's doing a great job with you and getting you exposed. I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't be like exposed. I mean, you're 8-0. Technically, you're 16-0 if we include your amateur record. You get finishes, you get quick knockouts, 58-second KO, like pre-COVID for a title. Like you got some great stuff on your resume, and it was just unfortunate circumstance. And I hope you do get invited back. I really, really do hope you get invited back. I would love to see you fight again. Um, but now I have to ask you one more question. For this weekend, UFC Vegas 11, who do you got? Do you got Kobe Covington or Tyron Woodley?
Um, it's a tough one. I would have to go with Colby, just because his fight style is similar to those that Woodley has lost to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Gilbert Burns has almost the same style as Covington, same as Usman. They all have that wrestling grind that wears Woodley out, and he gets to that point where he doesn't really know what to do next other than land that nice heavy shot. But there's also that chance where Woodley can catch him, especially with the shots that he took from Usman and win the fight. But if I had to bet on it, I would pick Colby.
Interesting. That's a good pick. Good analysis. I think it's gonna be an incredible fight. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll go ahead and let you get out of here, and so I can get out of here also, so I can go watch Contender Series.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much to look forward to with you. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you, Anthony Romero, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. No problem. All right, guys. That was Anthony Romero, Canada's top lightweight prospect. Appreciate him coming on the show. We're gonna go ahead and end it here. I'm gonna go watch Contender Series. And I'll see you guys Saturday.